And now to a WXII-12 News exclusive. North Carolina's senior senator, Republican Richard Burr, joining us now live in our studio. Thank you for joining us tonight, Senator. The overwhelming foreign policy question across the world right now, what to do about ISIS. You're chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. You're right there in the middle of all this. What should the United States be doing that it's not already doing about ISIS?
Well, Cam, we have to eliminate the threat. It's not just a threat for the United States, as we've seen in Belgium. We've got a country that's shut down now because of that threat. And I think it's safe to say that our partners around the world, at least from the trip that I've been on, question whether the United States is truly their partner and whether we're going to lead. We can't have that type of concerns around the world and believe that you can put together an international coalition, and I think that's what it's going to take.
One of the big offshoots of this is what's going on in Syria. Millions of refugees. What should the United States be doing about all those people who are trying to come to this country or other countries across the world?
Cameron, 240,000 Syrians have been killed, over 240, 4 million displaced. Now we've got a debate in Washington about what we do about a refugee program. Listen, the best way to solve the refugee program is create a safe haven within Syria, a safe haven that allows them to stay in their country. If we don't, the world can't handle the number of refugees that will leave the region. So we've got to do something about the Assad regime, and hopefully that's in partnership with the Russians.
You just returned from a trip to the United Arab Emirates. I know you were talking about cooperation. How do we get Arab nations to join in with this coalition? How hard is that? How important is that?
Arab nations are ready, but they need America to lead. And I think it was, whether it was in Egypt or Qatar or the UAE, every one of their officials, including the Crown Prince, said, we'll be glad to go into Syria and to make a difference, but we can't do it if America's not there. So America has to lead. We have to set the pace. You can't do that with 50 special forces. You've got to do it with a complement. It doesn't by any stretch mean that American troops need to be on the front line, but we've got to be there to support whatever those countries are willing to commit.
What do we do about Russia? What do we do about Iran? Those are two countries also fighting ISIS, but right now we're doing it independently. Should there be some coordinated effort? Should there be some sort of central command? How do you get them involved?
Cameron, the United States by itself cannot eliminate the ISIS threat. With a coalition globally, we can do it, and the Russians have to be part of that. But it is impossible to believe that you can accomplish that unless we get an agreement from the Russians that the Assad government is going to leave. Now, that may not be immediately, it may be over time, but without the Assad government in check, it's impossible to get the Gulf state partners to agree to wage a war on ISIL.
When we went back and we look at what happened in Paris last Friday night, this came out of the blue. Intelligence wasn't ready. You have been talking about more technology, more surveillance, more monitoring of chatter. Do you think that's one of the key components in battling ISIS?
Well, let me just say that for the last year we've said this was the greatest threat of threats that we've ever seen domestically and globally. And I think if you'd have asked anybody off the Intelligence Committee or in the community, we would have told you that Europe was right in the center, the red area of the bullseye, and Paris was the most mentioned name. So really, Paris didn't surprise me. It surprised me that we didn't have any warning. It surprised me that there may have been 2 attacks that were planned. It surprised me that that continues to be terrorism throughout Europe. But at the end of the day, ISIS at the heart of all of this.
All right, a lot going on a lot of fronts. Appreciate you joining us, U.S. Senator Richard Burr.